Hi class, how you guys doing? Welcome to week 5. Okay, so as you guessed, this week we're going to be talking about portrait retouching, some of the more fascinating work in the Photoshop design workflow. So I think you're going to enjoy this. There's a lot to go through this week, so let's go ahead and get started. Um, so as a review, during week 4, we looked at digital artistry, specifically the mixer brush, and then we added that to our arsenal of tools that we've been building since week 1. So we're really building quite a powerful set of tools to assist us in our digital workflow regarding digital imaging. So this week is certainly no exception to that. We're going to introduce some really compelling techniques, taking images from their raw state, so to speak, to a refined, retouched state suitable for presentation on the web or on screen, in print. So the one thing I want to mention before we get started is that, typically you look at images on the web, you look at images in magazines, you look at images in advertising. We look at images all day. There is a high likelihood that the image you are looking at has been retouched. I would say it's probably close to 100%. If the image is in a publication or in some sort of a organized presentation, it has likely been retouched. As a professional designer in almost well over 25 years, I have never ever received an image for a project that is suitable for use without retouching. Again, I'm going to repeat that because it's that important. In over 25 years, I have never received one image that didn't need retouching before using it. So it's that important. So we're going to go through the announcement in a second, but I want to go through the actual course resources first. So if we jump over here, we've got the week 5 overview, and I just want to show you something in here. So we've got some reading in here. Okay, now listen, I'm going to admit the book is not a complete resource for retouching techniques. We've got chapter 3 and chapter 5. Chapter 3 is a recap of selection techniques, and chapter 5 shows some editing and retouching techniques, but not what we need for this particular assignment. So I've got some resources in the announcement. I'll show you in 1 second, but please understand that it's really incumbent on the student to review those resources. There are literally hundreds of tutorials in the 3 resources that I have included in the announcements. Again, I'll go over that in a second, but it's incumbent on students to really go through those to decipher which ones you want to use to employ retouching techniques in the retouching assignment, which we'll talk about again in 1 second. So that's a week 5 overview. Let's go ahead and jump over to week 5 culture presentation, a culture of manipulation. This is really an interesting presentation because it has, not only is it showing you examples of professionally enhanced images for commercial use, but it also describes the kind of social ramifications, the cultural implications of refining work, of retouching work, and how it could point to a negative responsibility on the, I should say, it could point to the responsibility of the designer, pointing to negative aspects based on social acceptance and culture and based on the actual presentation of the retouch work. This, for example, one of these are both retouched images. One of them makes this individual look much more sinister than the other. So you can just imagine the implications of making somebody who is innocent look more sinister than the actual image shows. Okay, so we can clearly see this. So this is pointing to, it's almost coercing the viewer to look at this man as if he were more sinister than the counterpart over here on this image. So that's just one example. There's other examples, and I really want you to stretch your thought process and looking at images and understanding how they could have negative social or cultural ramifications based on the retouching and re-editing techniques. And there's several examples here. So when you read through, just think about your retouching technique and how it could possibly have negative social or cultural implications. For portrait work, we should be okay. I don't necessarily see any implications there. However, please read through this presentation as it's directly relevant to your careers in professional design as they relate to your retouching projects. Okay, let's get out of there. And where do I want to go next? We can figure out so retouch, reinventing a classic. Okay, I want to point your attention to here. This is the week 5 exercise retouching. Okay, but before I do that, I kind of want to go over to this. Now, don't forget, we're going to be continuing work on our Reinventing a Classic Part 2, but I want to draw your attention to this. And I'm in Week 5, Project 2, Reinventing a Classic Part 2 page, right? I just want to draw your attention to this right here. First paragraph. As you are gathering images for this project, please stay away from images that were used in live action remakes of your novel. So the novel you choose, if it was a movie, I'm going to use Wizard of Oz, for example. You can't use images from the movie in your cover for Wizard of Oz if you chose Wizard of Oz. And I'm just using that as an example. So please understand that the requirements of the Reinventing a Classic book cover preclude the use of any images from movies or anybody else's depiction of that character. So if there is another novel book cover that maybe shows another artist's depiction of the characters in that particular novel, can't use it. This all has to be original thought, original process. Okay, I hope that's particularly clear. If not, let me know, because it's very, very important to the success of Project 2, Reinventing a Classic. Okay, that is done. Okay, retouching. So we do have this week's 5 exercise retouching, and we've got this. It's basically a two-step process. So first, you're going to take a portrait, you're going to retouch it based on what we see here. Okay, and then you're going to take that same portrait and you're going to do some more extreme retouching techniques. Okay, and that's where you actually reshape using the liquify filter and actually reshape the shapes of people's faces, etc. So the idea here is that we are going to show this progression of the original image, then the retouched, and then the extreme retouch, so we can see the progression. Okay, now a lot of these techniques, guys, as I said, if you wanted to learn the liquify filter, for example. So what you would do is if that particular example isn't included in the tutorials that I've included in this announcement, then it's really super easy. There are literally thousands of retouching tutorials on the web. So let's say you want to use how do I reshape somebody's face in Illustrator. Go, try that search parameter, or try, if you want to learn how to use the liquify filter, try this. Go out to the web search, say how to use the liquify filter in Photoshop, and you'll find literally hundreds of tutorials. Okay, so that said, let's go ahead and get out of there, and let's go back to the actual, let me see. So that covers overview, presentation of culture of manipulation, our retouching exercise. Of course, we have an associated critique for that. Then we have our Reinventing a Classic Part 2 that we're working on. And then we have a critique associated for that. So let's go ahead and jump right over to the announcement. Just want to show you a few things. Recap of week 4, portrait retouching. Great example of some of the techniques, of visual techniques, outcomes that we can achieve using these digital techniques. So as you can see, the results are dramatic. Okay, and that's what we're shooting for, guys. That's exactly what we're shooting for. So, as I said before, the book has some techniques, but not really in depth. And these 3 techniques right here are a way to kind of get you introduced to using the web to find tutorials. There's actually hundreds of tutorials in these 3 resources. So it might entail, deciphering what kind of technique you want to use. Let's say I want to do teeth whitening. You might go through these and find teeth whitening tutorial within these resources. Or, of course, the alternative is just go straight to the web and say, how do I whiten teeth in Photoshop? Right? Really, really, really pretty straightforward stuff. Okay, so with that, that's what we have this week, guys. We have our learning outcomes, our tasks, and our deliverables and due dates. All right, everybody's doing, I can't believe what a treat this class is, guys. You guys are doing amazing. As a group, you're just progressively moving forward at a really consistent pace. Nobody's lagging behind at all. As a matter of fact, several students are moving forward and just doing wonderful work. So this is really a treat for me because this class is very well acclimated to the instructions and techniques and some of the resources and different elements that we're introducing in this in the curriculum. So fantastic job, everybody! Please keep up the great work. Those of you who are asking me questions via email or in the general questions, you know that you're not waiting for responses. You won't wait for me, guys. You got a question? Go ahead and ask it. You'll typically get a response in a matter of hours. Email, if that's the way you want to do it, that's great. I'd rather you email me than not ask me at all. Preferably, your questions go in the general questions area of the Q&A area of the classroom. But if you email me, that's great. Please. The point here is if you have a question, get with me. I will be able to answer it. I will be able to clarify things. So no question too big or small, guys. All right, 10 minutes, almost 11. Didn't want to do that, but I did want to be as thorough as possible, as usual, right? So guys, welcome to week 5. Questions, comments, concerns, clarifications, any of the above, please let me know. I'll be glad to provide anything in that regard. And I'll see you guys this week. Again, really super important this week, guys. Any questions at all, please let me know quickly. Thank you very much.